This video will be philosophizing on the personality characteristic of temperance concerning proportionality and or self-kindness and or self-lovingness, each concerned with the moderation, satisfying essential and or necessitated underlying psychological needs, calibrated to one's self-preferences, more unique to engage more optimizing subjective well-being associated with one's unique aesthetic experiences that one derives meaningful, positive, optimistic experiences within calibrated self-preferences satisfying certain essential and or necessitated underlying psychological needs. As one engages more proportionate processing of certain internal and or external conditions one monitors within one's being in relation to the surrounds that encompasses one's consciousness, one engages more meaningful moderation of certain ingestions that are appropriate to allowance more temperate volitions and or conducts associated with proportionality, to mean that one engages what is within one's need, not overindulges one's need, nor overconsumes. That's distinct from proportionality. Similarly, engaging deprivation motivations fails to satisfy certain underlying psychological needs within proportionality. This may include starving oneself out of fear and or avoidance that one may get fat consuming too much food, and or certain foods that are composed of fats, including meat and or processed foods, that either extreme holds certain counterproductive threats and or harms and or may injure one's underlying psychological need satisfaction. Needing the appropriate proportionate step-by-step ingestions to satisfy appropriately certain essential and or underlying necessitated psychological needs, compared to self-kindness that more uniquely is associated with engaging certain positive feelings within aesthetic experiences that tend to promote positivity and or optimisms. For example, be it you are carrying a heavy load for vast ranging distances, you may stop to savor the scenery in what is a beautiful, elegant horizon with a mountain backdrop, engaging certain self-preferences that you connect to your emotional experiences, connecting certain intrinsic processes and or intrinsic properties to allowance for more meaningfulness and or disallowance the more burdensome tasks to engage more satisfaction with one's essential and or necessitated underlying psychological needs. This may include engaging drawing in one's pastime to connect to certain positive, meaningful emotions, engaging more kindness and or engaging positive self-talk within one's introspections to build up the self, not necessarily engage the opposite polarity, self-hatefulness, more destructive, thinking in terms of counterproductive thoughts and or negative self-talk, compared to self-lovingness fueled with the desire to engage more meaningful intrinsic motivations satisfying certain essential and or necessitated underlying psychological needs, connected directly and or indirectly to one's self-preferences. Meaningful within engaging more strengthening practices and or often savoring strengthening meaningfulness processes within elaborating what is not uniquely meaningful to the self, yet fuels the self to engage future-oriented conducts again and or again that are meaningful, often in terms of the accumulated value, engaging more valuations of certain intrinsic processes and or intrinsic properties, that one is often more forward-looking and or engages more passionately what fuels one's inner being, to cultivate temperance in moderation instead of engaging more apathetic responses, devaluing and or often lacking meaningful concern without necessarily connecting one's desires to X meaningfully, engaging more worthwhileness within one's experiências, dentro uma existência, within temperate, cautionate moderation of what intrinsically is most desired within certain aesthetic experiences. To close this video, I want to provide a brief criticism of Stoicism that is often the extreme of certain attempts to engage more temperate volition and or conducts, often impairing self-kindness and or self-lovingness dispassionately with what often avoids one's self-preferences, not necessarily the satisfaction of certain underlying psychological needs, more unique to certain component parts and or processes of essential psychological needs, yet one may abstain proactively from certain self-preferences that are meaningful to engage certain aesthetic experiences one would not otherwise experience, that are meaningful to experience certain positive, meaningful emotions one would not experience had one not engaged certain ingestions, that the Stoic is often deprived of certain meaningful, worth the while experiences one may savor, engaging more meaningful creativity and explorations of one's being, to instead often suffer from certain fragmented component parts and or processes of one's existencia without cultivating the meaningful self-knowledge and or self-awareness that is unique to certain aesthetic experiences that you may never truly be able to experience and or savor again, needing some meaningful time to moderate and or engage what is a once in a while most meaningful, worth the while experience that optimizes subjective well-being instead of harming it and or impairing and or resulting in deficiencies and or disabilities. Stoics are more likely to abstain from certain self-preferences to the detriment of self, with often lower subjective well-being, not necessarily the desired positive subjective well-being. Individuals who are more balanced in terms of their consumptions are more likely to experience positive subjective well-being. That's all I want to say for this video. Hope you have an awesome one. Keep moving, Necessidade.